Hello, everybody. Welcome to Open Ed Live, Day 2. Thank you for those who joined us yesterday. And if you're new and this is your first day attending Open Ed Live, we'll just get started in a moment. Just waiting for those joining us to join in the webinar. We have the chat window open for everybody. And if you have any questions during our session here, just feel free to use the chat to interact with us or our presenters. And let me share my screen. Great. All right. So yeah, then again, welcome back everyone to day 2 of Open Ed Live. Again, we're excited to continue this journey with all of you, faculty, librarians, instructional designers, open education activists who are helping shape the future of learning. As we build on yesterday's insights from our keynote, David Wiley, and our afternoon session from Jeffrey Gallant and Richard Drake, today is another opportunity to then deepen our discussions, expand our exploration of AI-powered innovations, scaling strategies, and lifelong learning pathways in open education. Open Ed Live is your space and your network. We want you to use this time to connect, innovate, and elevate your practice. It's your hub to strengthen your ties and raise your consciousness, innovate your practice. And again, we want to welcome everybody and thank everyone for joining us. Again, this is our second annual online event, which preludes our Open Education Week, the Open Education Week. So here's a little bit of information about that. It's an annual global celebration where educators can actively share and learn about the latest achievements in open education. There are many events that occur throughout this week. I'm going to put some links in the chat. Well, you can go ahead, Amanda, if you have them ready. Thank you. After Open Education Week, we don't want to have everyone lose any momentum. The OER Bootcamp from our friends over at the Florida Virtual Campus will occur on March 26th through March 28th, which its main focus is adopting, adapting, and authoring OERs. Top Kit Workshop occurs around the same time, but for those passionate about faculty development and online teaching. So, and then for anyone joining us today, feel free to share any other events happening in the chat. Participants. I'll see if I can put this in the chat. You got it? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so as we build on our conversations from yesterday and we look forward, we want to see how open education has come and where we're going. Over the last few years, we've seen rapid growth in OER adoption, an increase in accessibility practices, and the integration of cutting-edge technologies like AI in course materials. This year, we're diving into the implications of these changes, discussing how we can best innovate for open education and how those resources can serve for practices, best practices, and implementation at other institutions around the world. I'd like to just talk a little bit about our Hova platform that we're using. We have an exciting lineup today of speakers, panels, interactive sessions. The platform that we're using, we implore you to go in there and interact with your fellow colleagues and those participants and speakers joining us. There's different ways to interact, from our gamified activities like the leaderboard contest, photo contest, and the icebreaker contest. You can earn points on the leaderboard by completing challenges like adding sessions to your agenda, completing our survey, beefing up your profile, interacting with our community board. And just from looking at it from yesterday, we have over 40 community posts and tons of interaction in there already. So if you're interested in joining the conversation, I would definitely navigate into Hova and look at that community tab and join the conversation there. There's a lot of insight there that is valuable to the conference outside of our sessions, especially the photo contest as well. Just as a fun little activity, snap a photo of your drink, if you're having a coffee or tea or anything. It's just some fun there. And just start to interact with your colleagues, make connections. Yeah. Just want to remind everyone joining us that all the sessions will be recorded besides our 2 drop-in sessions, the one yesterday from David Wiley and today. These will be available through the UCF STARS repository. Um, you can revisit any content you've missed and want to explore further. Once that is readily available, we'll create an email and send it out to all of our participants so that they can navigate to our repository and view those sessions from this year and from last year. Um, and Amanda, would you mind putting the link for the STARS repository there if you have it handy, just so they can see? Thank you. A little bit about our schedule today. We have another exciting day ahead of us filled with insightful sessions. We have, just looking at our agenda, we start today with James Glapa-Grossklag, Dean of Educational Technology, Learning Resources and Distance Learning at the College of the Canyons. He presents his session, Supersize Your OER Initiative with ZTC Pathways. He'll share strategies for expanding open educational resources through zero textbook cost pathways. Immediately following that, James is offering a drop-in session, an interactive opportunity to ask questions, exchange ideas, and meet experts in the field. To close out the day, we'll hear from Daniel Williamson from OpenStax and Matthew Tai, an instructor from the University of Central Florida, as they present OpenStax in action, integrating open educational resources for teaching, which will explore practical applications of OpenStax resources in the classroom. So let's make the most out of day 2. Let's engage, learn, collaborate. And at this time, I'll actually introduce our Assistant Vice Provost of Digital Learning here at the University of Central Florida, Kevin Corcoran, to then introduce our speaker for our following session, James Glapa-Grossklag. Thank you so much.
Zoom has a mind of its own. We've still got a little bit of time, so we're just going to have folks trickle in for another about 6-7 minutes. I will tease that I will start off the session with a little bit of poetry. You'll have to guess the author. And if you believe that, then you don't know me, but we'll get to that point. Appreciate everybody coming back or coming in. What we did yesterday was a little interesting. We asked folks to introduce themselves in the chat and identify where they're coming from. We were trying to identify the furthest distance from Orlando, Florida, that somebody was attending virtually. I think we had one person from Uruguay yesterday who was the daily winner. We're looking to see if we can beat that. So I think what we're going to do, Rocco, is just relax a little bit, and in about 5 minutes, we'll get going.
That sounds great. Looks like we have everyone joining us right now from the US.
Kevin, are we responsible for any witty banter in the downtime? Or do we want dead air? That's kind of risky.
James, you and I can certainly fill the dead air with witty banter.
That's right. Roses are red. I don't know. We can start there. No, I'm not with the poetry either.
Well, it'll disappoint some, but I'll find it humorous. So we'll see who shares my sense of humor. But how are things in California?
Thank you for asking. So, usually I say, well, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous coming to you from sunny Southern California. It's 80 degrees outside and sunny, and that doesn't really do much for an audience in Florida, of course. But I imagine you're alluding to the recent wildfires. Fortunately, my college, my home team, College of the Canyons, we were spared any direct impact, although of course students and staff were impacted. But yeah, Los Angeles proper is struggling and doing its best to get back on its feet. It's it's pretty stunning to see the images of thousands and thousands and thousands of homes and businesses absolutely destroyed. When I first moved to California, to Southern California, a quarter of a century ago, I was aware of wildfires and thought, well, where I bought a home, it's not on the very edge of the town. It's not, on the edge of the forest. So I guess I'll be safe because goodness, a fire would have to burn through a whole town to get to my house. but that's regular occurrence now that fires do burn through whole towns. So pretty dramatic, pretty drastic, and a lot of people are still struggling to recover.
For those who haven't yet donated, is there any particular charity that the colleges are suggesting?
Boy, Kevin, give me a few minutes and I will dig one up for us. That's awfully nice of you to ask. Let me. I'm pretty sure I know that know of a statewide fundraising effort, but let me confirm that's something that would help our students. Thank you.
Our heart goes out to those who were affected by the fires for sure. And while you're looking, I did generate using ChatGPT a poem for our participants today about Open Ed Live that it's very short. If I may, go ahead and recite. Okay. Bridging the future, a pathway to open learning. Across the bridge where the knowledge flows, through open doors where wisdom grows, we gather here, a vision bright, to shape a world of boundless light. Innovation fuels our stride. With open minds, we stand with pride. A digital world, a classroom new, a future shaped by me and you. From OER to AI's grace, expanding learning, time and space. Collaboration, voices strong. Together we belong. So walk this bridge, embrace the call. Education open to us all. For every learner, far and near, a brighter world begins right here. Thank you.
Wow. You just raised the bar way higher than I was aiming for. Well, folks, we're about 2 minutes
you.
away from showtime, so we're just gonna lock in, and when James, oh, thank you for posting that. Obviously, that's not the focus of this, but if you find the opportunity and the will to donate to those folks that have suffered through the wildfires in Florida, please, there is a link in there. But James, appreciate you sharing that.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Amanda, for your kind words. It's pretty stunning to realize, to grasp what's happened.
Well, I mean,
I was
the
going to
open
say,
community is all about sharing, so please,
yeah,
Rocco, go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's a heartfelt topic. With only 1 minute till your session, did you want to go ahead and share your screen, James, get your presentation up?
Thank you for the prompt, Rocco.
Mm-hmm.
That the right view?
Correct. It looks good
Excellent.
now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and with it just about being on the hour and now, feel free to begin within the next minute or so. Thank you so much, James.
Thanks for all your support, Rocco.
We're gonna wait till the official strike of the hour, at least by my laptop clock, just to give any last minute stragglers or caffeine addicted folks an opportunity to get connected. And I self-identify as caffeine addicted. And I'm going through a support group for that. With that being said, it is the top of the hour, and welcome to day 2 of Open Ed Live. My name is Kevin Corcoran. I work for the University of Central Florida, and it is my distinct honor to have you come back or welcome you for your day 1. During the witty banter section prior to this, I did promise a poem of sorts, and I'm going to stress the of sorts. It's by a great poet by the name of Greg Lake. And the phrase goes, "Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside." If you happen to know that reference, let me know in the chat. But if not, let's just move along. So with that being said, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce my friend, James Glapa-Grossklag. Again, his bio's on there. I don't want to necessarily go through all of his accomplishments and accolades. I'd rather focus on my personal engagement with James over the years. And it was, I want to say 5, 6 years ago when I first had the pleasure of working with James through OE Global, through Arlo, the regional leaders of open education. And there were a number of great initiatives that came out of that effort, but James led an effort around data stewardship, around a charge for open formats and content, open platforms, assuring that our student data was protected and that anything that went into a system was able to come out of that system. And I was so impressed with that engagement. And I was looking for another opportunity to partner with James, and we had an opportunity to talk about price transparency across a number of state entities at Open Ed conference a few years ago. And so I am so excited that James is here, not only to talk about price transparency at a course level, but really expanding affordability and price transparency across an entire degree program, and to hear what California has done. So with that, James, please take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Congratulations to you and the team here. It is a really impressive event. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm really impressed with the event, with the organization, and I've used this opportunity to learn more about University of Central Florida. And you've got a lot of great, amazing things going on. I've known for years about the leadership in open education coming out of Florida, so it's very fitting that this conference is coming to us all from Florida. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much. Appreciate being here. I'm honored to even be in a similar time slot as David Wiley. I am no David Wiley, that's for sure. I admire his work greatly, and he's been a real role model and thought leader for so many of us in the open ed space. And I'll start with full transparency. David is actually somebody who has criticized the ZTC movement that I'm going to be speaking with you about today. So we might talk a little bit more about some of the concerns with the ZTC initiatives later on in this talk. But for now, what we're doing today, Supersize Your OER initiative with ZTC Pathways. You see my affiliations down there at the bottom of the screen. In addition to my home team of College of the Canyons, where I'm an academic dean, I have the honor of serving in the California community colleges, our statewide system, as the support person for a statewide ZTC grant program, which I'll talk about a little bit later. For now, let's move on. There we go. If you could please introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. And I'm particularly interested in whether or not your institution has a ZTC degree or ZTC pathways, or do you identify ZTC classes in your schedule of classes for your students? And so that would be really helpful to know. Here is our agenda for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about where does this whole idea come from of ZTC. I'm an historian by training, so I always start with a history, definitions. We, as educators, we always start with definitions as well. Then we'll look a little bit at the differences between OER, which we're all here to learn about and advocate for, and ZTC programs. We'll delve into a discussion around why an institution would want to pursue ZTC pathways, how the stakeholders in ZTC programs are different in some ways than in an OER initiative. Then I will spend a little bit of time talking about the California Community College ZTC program because it's pretty amazing. It's pretty significant. So I'll very happily talk more about that, and then I'll leave you with some resources as well. So let's get started. So again, I'm an historian, so I'll start with the history. Where the heck does this idea come from, ZTC? Well, the first ZTC programs that we know of, that I know of, were launched by Tidewater Community College in Virginia in 2013. And legend has it, I don't know that David Wiley is here today, but legend has it that David Wiley and the then provost of Tidewater Community College were talking about the amount of OER that had been created in the world, and thought that, gee, all of this OER in our general education curriculum really could help us add up to a comprehensive program or a comprehensive degree pathway. So they came up with this concept of launching a whole pathway, and it received the designation of Z degree at the time, now known as zero textbook costs, or ZTC degrees. Then in 2015, shortly thereafter, a good friend and colleague, TJ Bliss, who's currently in Idaho at their state system office, he was then with the Hewlett Foundation. He published an article entitled Z as in Zero, Increasing College Access and Success Through ZTC Degrees. So really launching the concept into the world, or putting it in print so others could be inspired by it. Later that same year, a group of OER advocates, myself included, also with David Wiley and TJ Bliss and a number of others, we somehow found ourselves inside the California governor's office, where we made a pitch for the California state government to invest in a pilot program of supporting community colleges to develop these Z degrees or ZTC programs. The legislature approved $5 million for a grant program to give funding to California community colleges to develop these ZTC pathways or degrees. At the same time, the national organization Achieving the Dream launched a national OER degree grant program working with community colleges. Then fast forward to 2021 in California, Governor Newsom proposed a $115 million investment in a ZTC grant program for the community colleges, and that's what I'll talk about later on. And fast forward in a year or two in the California community colleges, we will have hundreds, literally hundreds. We have 500 programs currently under development. Our students will be able to choose from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of complete pathways in a ZTC format. So what I keep saying ZTC, what the heck are we talking about? We all know the definition of OER, I'm pretty sure. And forgive me, I'm just getting over a cold, not recommended. We'll look at a little bit of what OER degrees might be, ZTC courses and sections and pathways, and we'll do this using some examples that are out there in the world. First, I'll start with our very familiar definition of OER. Whether you use this definition or a variation on it, let's be sure we all have the same definition in mind: freely available learning materials that are openly licensed, right? So the Achieving the Dream OER degree program back in 2016, beginning in 2016, worked with 38 community colleges across 13 states to develop programs. So program is an element of it, using openly licensed resources. So the openly licensed resource is another component of it. So a complete program developed around OER. So students are working their way through the program with OER. Ideally, you're completing an associate degree or maybe a certificate of achievement of some sort, based around OER, not based around other materials, right? The license for the ATD OER degree program, the license was a really key component that the materials would be built on OER and openly licensed materials. Now, if we start looking around the United States for ZTC degrees or Z degrees, we see a variation on that. So this is Northland Community College in Minnesota. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen that they're promoting as a Z degree, a complete AA degree. Okay, so a complete pathway, terrific. And then that second portion that's highlighted there, you see using free materials and OER. So not just OER, but also other free materials. So what other free materials might that be? Throw a comment in the chat if you think you know what other kinds of free materials are used in Z degree programs, and I'm sure our librarian colleagues know the answer to that. Then up in Canada, in British Columbia, Kwantlen Polytechnic University, KPU, very well-known, innovative university in Canada, developed Canada's first ZTC program. And you see here that they're developing their program, they have developed their program based on open educational resources and or library materials, so that students can complete a program, right? Again, it's a complete program, not just individual class sections, and earn a credential without spending money. So we see here that the focus is shifting a little bit from the license that's on the materials to the user, customer, student. So there's a little bit of a change or shift there. Florida Virtual Campus, boy, congratulations to Florida. Kudos to Florida. I mentioned Florida has long had exercised leadership in the open ed space. Florida's zero textbook cost course indicator definition and FAQs page, a link down there at the bottom, is really comprehensive. So really, really impressive. The definition in Florida, at least on paper, I don't know what the reality is, but on paper, the definition is that no textbook costs are required with a course. So zero for the student. These courses may be using library resources or other freely available resources. So not just OER and library resources, but maybe other freely available resources, as long as there's no cost to students. So again, that focus has shifted to students. The cost for the customer, the students, is zero. Over in Mississippi, they've developed or are developing a Z degree Mississippi. Courses are tagged as Z degree on the course schedule. So advertising to students, cost transparency to students, informing students. And their definition includes this phrase: once enough courses are designated Z degree, it's possible for students to earn a degree with no textbook costs. And, you know, in my experience in higher education for many years, that's probably a little bit closer to truth in advertising than we commonly find. That we're trying to put enough classes in the schedule. We're trying to identify enough classes as ZTC classes that a student might be able to piece something together. If you're a department chair or a dean or a scheduler at a college or university, you probably know the real challenges of lining up a coherent pathway for students so that students can consistently take all their classes in the morning or consistently take all their classes in the evenings, and so on and so forth. It's not easy. Then out in Idaho, where I've mentioned TJ Bliss, formerly of the Hewlett Foundation, is currently a chief academic officer. He also brought the Z degrees to Idaho. And we see here that it's the Z degrees in Idaho stand for zero cost. And the goal is to make it possible for students to complete with zero or very low cost textbooks. So now we've got another little wrinkle on that definition. So we can advertise to students that it's a Z degree or zero cost degree, but in some cases we'll have low cost or very low cost course materials. So I think my overall takeaway from this is that even though I'm the one talking about ZTCs here, I can't find a consistent definition across higher education in the United States. There's the general idea that we're talking about the student experience and removing the cost barrier for students. There's the general idea that we have a consistent pathway that students can follow, a program that students can complete, a credential they can earn, and yet there are variations within that. One more example here. Again, pardon me. Sorry about my cold lingering here. British Columbia in Canada, BC campus, tremendous leader in so many ways, in so many realms of innovation in teaching and learning. BC campus, they define a ZTC program as one in which you can earn a degree or certificate with zero textbook costs by way of using OER or free library materials. And then in California community colleges, also the key for us is in our education code, in our formal definition, the key is eliminating conventional textbook costs. So that can be done through many different ways. The door is open a bit more broadly in our formal regulations here in California. But overall, I think what we see, and I hope what you see, is that we're shifting the focus from single faculty, single instructors adopting OER to maybe a more strategic, intentional, thoroughgoing, institution straddling undertaking to create a program. And we're shifting from OER, openly licensed materials, the real focus on the license, to free instructional materials. Asterisk, we hope it's OER, But it could be all library materials, which of course, which oftentimes are under traditional copyright. They're not free of charge. The institution is paying a significant fee to license those materials, but they're free with no cost to students. And then we're shifting from a focus on single sections or single classes to, again, a coherent pathway. The student can go from A to Z, all the classes, the major classes and the general education classes, and earn that credential. But the most important element of this, in my mind, is illustrated by the image there of the green stoplight. A ZTC pathway, in my mind, much more than individual OER classes, gives a student a green light to go, to commit to completing their education. I think that most of us involved in the open education space understand the challenges that our students face when they start their education, they walk into a classroom or log into a classroom. Everybody's got the book. Everybody's got everything except them because they can't afford it. And maybe they pull it together for this semester to buy the book. And maybe they get into an OER class. And that's a great relief. But then next semester, they don't know whether there's an OER class. Maybe they get into an OER class, maybe they don't. Maybe the teacher surprises them by requiring a $200 textbook. Who knows? You're not ready for it. There's no signal from the institution that you're not going to be caught unawares by that $200 textbook the next semester. So a ZTC pathway, in my mind, provides students with that green light saying it's safe to go ahead. You can commit to your entire pathway for the next 2 years, for the next X number of semesters. It's going to be a zero cost for these instructional materials for you. Okay. Also, I think a real element of the ZTC pathway is that we're doing at scale everything that we know works about OER. Hopefully, all of you at your own institutions either have or you're working with your institutional researchers to develop a mechanism to have data on student success and retention, student completion, what's happening with your disproportionately impacted populations, what happens when you disaggregate the data across different student populations, comparing OER classes to non-OER classes. We know that works. There are so many studies that tell us that that works at the individual section level. What happens when you do that across the full pathway? We're reducing equity gaps. Again, increasing grades and completions for disproportionately impacted populations and our most vulnerable populations. Again, lots of studies out there that tell us that happens when students are in OER classes. We're increasing currency and relevancy of our career education courses, of course. Hopefully we have lots of representatives of the career education fields with us today. It is so essential that those fields are involved in our open education efforts. Of course, updating your material and your curriculum for industry standards happens more quickly with OER. And again, if you're doing that across a full pathway, it's going to be that much more current. The materials are going to be that much more current for your students. And we, of course, can increase degrees and certificates. Whether we like it or not, a lot of our state legislatures and a lot of our governing authorities are measuring us based on the output. How quickly are we getting students? Are we helping students earn complete credentials and get them out into the workforce? And we know, again, individual studies tell us that when students are taking more OER classes, they're taking a higher course load, they're able to complete more quickly. And again, if you're doing that, making that format, that zero cost available across an entire program, you're going to be able to do this at a much greater scale. And I would be remiss if I didn't say it's a great marketing feature. It's a great way to say to students, come on in. Everybody loves free. It's an easy sale to students, if you will. And again, I'm guessing that, hoping that everyone out there at your institutions, that you're working with your marketing departments or your public information offices to develop marketing materials like this for your OER classes, for your individual classes, right? But if it's your program, if it's the history program, it's the automotive program, it's the solar program, it's the biology program, it's a lot more compelling. It's going to be have a much greater impact on the students and on your enrollments, right? Frankly, it's going to have a very positive impact on your enrollments if you can compellingly advertise the entire program. So with that, I've been talking nonstop here. I'm really bad at monitoring the chat. I want to just pause and check in with you all. Feel free to unmute, and Kevin, if you can call out if there are burning issues in the chat, comments, questions so far. And I'd like to hear from you. What are other reasons that an institution might pursue ZTC programs? I've talked about marketing. I've talked about OER at impact at scale, and so on. Kevin, what's going on in the chat?
Well, we've had a lively chat. Yeah, well, once again, we've had some discussion about the challenges that the sciences have with OER and wet labs. But we did have a number of institutions identify of having ZTC pathways in some form or fashion. So I apologize if I butcher this, but Illinois Central College, Coastline, Broward College, Howard Community College, in addition to Tidewater, were some of the institutions that were mentioned in the chat.
Excellent. Shout out to Coastline, fellow California college in the room. Awesome to hear that. That's great. Well, terrific. Does anybody want to unmute and give us a comment or two on what are reasons why an institution might pursue a ZTC program?
Ingrid just posted a very good question, and it's something that we've talked about at a course level around enrollment data and whether or not there's a perception that ZTC courses or degrees have impacts on enrollment, positively or negatively.
Yeah, excellent point, Ingrid. I certainly encourage you, again, to work with your institutional research or institutional effectiveness colleagues. It is so important to have that kind of data. And that's the type of data that at my institution we report on regularly. My team, my local college of the Canyons, our OER initiatives are embedded in our online education team. So we report every year to our local board on data associated with online classes, but also with our ZTC pathways. And in both instances, one of our key data that we report is what we call fill rates, how quickly classes fill. At what point prior to the semester do those online classes fill or those ZTC classes fill? And it's really a no-brainer. ZTC classes fill up, their registrations fill much earlier than our traditional ZTC classes, let's say, expensive classes, commercial textbook classes. So I certainly encourage all of you to work with your institutional researchers on that for sure. Okay,
James, as an extension,
yes.
Have you seen that there have been greater success rates or time to graduation improvements by those who've gone through ZTC pathways versus those who haven't?
Yes. Again, great question. A similar answer. I encourage all of you to work with your institutional research departments to be able to track that, and you're able to track that if you're marking your OER classes or your ZTC classes, if you're marking them in your scheduled classes or flagging them or tagging them somehow. So then your institutional research colleagues are able to do all kinds of data analysis with those sections. And yes, both locally at my institution and across the California community colleges with the data that we have so far, yes, we see greater success and retention rates in classes that are marked as ZTC. At my local college where we have longer data, yes, we see greater success and retention rates in programs that are ZTC programs. Across California as a whole, it's too early in our process to have the outcomes for the entire programs, but we know that at the section level, the success and retention rates are higher. And if when we disaggregate the student success and retention data by different populations, we see that those student populations that are disproportionately impacted in our classes, that they have greater and higher success and retention rates in the ZTC classes than in the non-ZTC classes. So yes, there's definitely evidence out there. I encourage you to really work with your institutional research department to track those classes. That's always the first step that I advise colleagues. Make sure you're tracking those classes and talking to your researchers. With that, Kevin, I'm going to keep on going here, looking at the clock. We want to keep on trucking, okay? So let's move on to think about where a catalyst for ZTC comes from at an institution. General, I think it's a broad generalization. We might say that OER initiatives start with our classroom faculty. Somebody attends a conference like this. They talk to a colleague. Hey, I'm sick of students not having the book. I found a good OER book. I'm going to adopt OER in my class. But it's a long way from that individual faculty member turning into a champion to developing an entire pathway. So we know that happens all over the country now. But to move to an entire pathway takes much more than just that individual faculty member who's found materials for their class. Sometimes I've seen the catalyst to a ZTC program come out of the library. We know many of our library colleagues are exercising a lot of leadership in ZTC pathways and OER initiatives. That's certainly the case in the California community colleges. Other support units like online education or distance education, teaching and learning centers are often places that are in touch with, let's say, innovative developments, changes to teaching and learning. They're going to conferences perhaps and bringing home the idea of a complete ZTC pathway. But then sometimes also it's coming from administration. I make the case that really a ZTC pathway is a competitive advantage. It's an enrollment management imperative, really, when institutions around you are moving to OER, when institutions around you are supersizing their OER initiatives and they're advertising ZTC pathways. Everybody come over to my institution because the textbooks are free, the costs are going to be lower. It really becomes an administrative imperative to get on the bandwagon with the next big thing that's going to drive enrollments and success of students. So I've seen in many different instances that the impetus or catalyst for ZTC pathway comes from others in the institution than that lone faculty champion who has adopted OER. Also, when we think about this, actually putting this into play, developing a pathway, we need more people involved than our faculty colleagues who are in the classroom, right? Who else do you think needs to be involved if you're going to develop a ZTC pathway, or if you're going to market a ZTC pathway? You're going to train your faculty to adopt OER on a large scale. Who needs to be involved besides that lone faculty champion with their biology textbook? Who else needs to be involved? What do you think? I want to throw that in the chat. Right. Counselor, oh, Kelsey. Hey, Kelsey, my good friend Kelsey from California. Counselors, librarians, accessibility folks, absolutely positively. Yes, lots of librarians for sure. Darcy, yes, another, my friend Darcy from Alaska. Yes, provosts, registrars, absolutely positively. Yes. So we need a lot more academic staff for sure. We need a lot more people across the institution. Chairs and deans to build a coherent schedule. If you're a faculty chair out there and you're trying to put together a schedule that is coherent for students, to make things easy for them to follow, but you're also trying to satisfy the individual schedules of your colleagues. You know how challenging that is. So our ZTC pathway, they're all the classes that in the mornings or all the classes in the evening, so students can follow that logically. Our MIS and IT folks to make sure that we're doing course marking, of course, a searchable class schedule. Counselors, as was mentioned in the chat, counselors and advisors, excuse me, for helping students to plan. And Kelsey, absolutely, your institutional research department for sure is absolutely key. Registrars, bursars, really you're talking about much more of the institutional machine than with individual faculty members. So there's a lot more outreach that has to happen. If you're leading the charge, it's much more incumbent upon you to reach out to institutional research, IT, admissions and records, counseling, and so on and so forth to help get everybody on the same page to understand what's happening. But of course, that's perhaps the more exciting thing, that you get to work with all those departments. So in a nutshell, the question about are you ready really, in my mind, in addition to the outreach to the colleagues across campus, in a curricular sense, it comes down to this question: do you have how many of your major courses are OER or can become OER, or other low cost or no cost materials? So working with your librarians, perhaps you've got gaps in OER in your major courses. Work with your librarians to identify library materials or other learning resources that are no cost to your students that can be used. And then your general education courses. You know, it's one thing for us to be working in our disciplines, if me and my department, my discipline of history, to convince my colleagues in the history department to go OER. But it's another thing for me to work with colleagues in the sciences, to work with colleagues in math, to work with colleagues in English, and so on and so forth. That's a different approach for me across the institution. Again, that can be a really fun challenge, but it's a different challenge. So, but you also certainly have to think about the general education courses. Do you have both sets of courses lined up, or is it possible for them to get there? Do you have willing faculty collaborators? And do you think that there's sufficient OER out there already, or is there sufficient, are there sufficient library resources out there already? So let me now transition to California, which is really amazing. Even if I weren't working in California, working on this project, I would think it's pretty amazing. Back in 2021, as I mentioned, the California governor proposed $115 million as an investment in our California community colleges to develop Z degrees. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see his statement at the news conference announcing this. I'm committed to addressing the racket that is textbooks in this country, usurious costs associated with textbooks. So we will do more. We in California have an obligation to disrupt that entire system nationwide. So we're in an amazing situation in California. We've got an amazing sort of once in a lifetime opportunity to disrupt that textbook market. But before I get into the details of the California ZTC grant program, I do want to say a couple quick words about advocacy. Like, where did this $150 million come from, right? I mean, did it just fall out of the sky? We wished it. No, it came from people, getting themselves in the door, but really understanding the process. What's the process for making a request? As I mentioned, in 2015, a group of OER advocates, we were able to find our way into the California governor's office and make a pitch. But that's not the official process. I mean, that's great if you've got friends who can get you in the door, but usually there's a real process for submitting a request to your state system of education, or submitting a request to the legislature. So with our second time around in 2020, before Governor Newsom agreed to the $115 million, we went through the formal process of submitting a request to our state system office. We needed to consider the context. We actually started the advocacy in 2020, and we know that the governor was amenable to it. But then guess what happened in the spring of 2020 when he was unveiling his budget? COVID hit. The economy was in the tank. Nobody knew what would happen. So it was the wrong context. The ZTC money got struck from the budget, as was appropriate at that time. A year later, California was in a budget surplus. So the time was right. The context was right. The state had extra money. So that was a good time. You have to get in the door. As I mentioned, it's great to have friends who can get you in the door, whether those are friends through your labor organizations, through political connections, through public relations. It's helpful to actually be able to get in the door to talk to people. Making the pitch. What are you asking for? And how are you asking for it, so that the legislators, the decision makers, so that they're going to understand it? Those of us working in open education, we know so much about the impact that OER can have on our teaching. And many of us are more interested in talking about open pedagogy and teaching and learning than we are interested in talking about affordability. But affordability, that's the headline. That's the headline that legislators get. That's the headline that board members get, et cetera, et cetera. And then just a reminder, leadership is a really long game. If you've asked for money at your institution once and haven't gotten it, that's okay. Ask again, refine your pitch. Ask again, refine your pitch. It's a very long game. In California, we started many, many, many years ago before we were able to secure this amazing $115 million investment. So California, just to paint the picture of California, I know Florida is a big state as well. And I think I saw in the chat, we've got colleagues here from Texas. So we've got some very large systems in this country. California, we have 115 community colleges that are eligible for this funding. We have 55,000 faculty members we're trying to work with. We serve over 2 million students. The investment is $115 million. Every single one of our colleges has received grant funding already. And as I mentioned, over 500 programs are currently being developed or have been funded. So pretty amazing that the largest system of higher education in the country is really dramatically, and we hope permanently, shifting away from the commercial textbook towards the academic freedom that OER allows us. I alluded to this before. We're very fortunate in California that ZTC degrees are defined in our education code, in our state law, state education law. I'm not going to read this, but the point is we have a structure in state law for a ZTC. So when we're promoting it, we have a place to fit it, and we can refer to the law. I want to share what our colleges are telling us right now. So we've been at this for a couple of years now, awarding grants to colleges and working with colleges, supporting colleges. And we've surveyed our colleges one time so far. We've got another survey coming out in a couple of months. And what have our colleges told us so far? You see here, 76% tell us that they are adapting pre-existing OER textbooks. So the work that you've done, if you're an OER textbook author or if you're an OER textbook adapter and you've shared your materials, you are positively impacting what's happening in California, because I guarantee you our faculty, again, 55,000 faculty across the state, they're probably using some of your materials. 74% say that they're using pre-existing OER materials. So they're just using the materials that are already out there. And we know that on the other side of the screen, you see LibreText. 78% of our colleagues say they're using LibreText materials. And if you know LibreText, they're ingesting everything from everywhere. So odds are pretty good that your material is also in LibreText. So, 2/3 of our colleagues are using OpenStax. No surprise there. We all are so grateful for what OpenStax continues to do. And then OER Commons. Nearly half of our faculty are finding useful material on OER Commons. And I love seeing that, because OER Commons is based in California. What else? I'm very excited. One of the great things for me personally is that I'm getting to learn about a lot of career tech programs. This is just a small sample of the amazing, really exciting career tech programs that are being developed, that have been funded and are being developed in California to provide complete ZTC pathways, agricultural engineering, electric vehicle technician, game developer, land surveying, museum studies, supply chain management. Lots of great programs are being developed. About half of the programs that are funded overall are career education programs. So a lot of great things to look forward to in California. So if you're an OER champion at your campus and you're thinking about working with your career tech programs, feel free to reach out to me, or feel free to look back at California, a year from now when we hope most of these programs will be developed, and we'll point you in the right direction. But of course, in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me as well, and I can direct you, to which college is working on digital fabrication for architecture, which college is working on cloud computing, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with them. So we also ask colleges, where does ZTC fit institutionally? Is it, it's not just this lone champion faculty member over here. It's the institution undertaking this. So half of our colleges told us that ZTC is a strategy for addressing college affordability. No surprise there, right? Nearly half of our colleges said that ZTC is part of the college's equity efforts. In California, equity is a massive undertaking. It's wrapped into the missions of colleges. It's wrapped into the mission of the entire California community college system. So it's no surprise to see that ZTC aligns with our equity mission. And then significantly fewer colleges identify ZTC as being in the college's strategic planning and goals. although I expect that's going to change in the next few years. Our state system has directed colleges, just adopted a policy directing colleges to ensure that students have access to instructional materials. So that's really going to get the attention of local colleges. They can no longer put off addressing affordability and and access to instructional materials. Also, we asked colleges what challenges they're experiencing and what supports are needed. We see here time constraints, no surprise there, gaining faculty buy-in, lack of ancillary materials. But go back to David Wiley's talk, ancillary materials might be a solvable issue now. Support's needed, support for accessibility. I saw that in the chat. Funding, colleges are getting a lot of free money, but they still need more funding. Guidance on open licensing, support to review and format materials. I think this probably resonates with the challenges you have as well. But we have a mechanism for understanding what our colleges need. And in the interest of time, Kevin, I'm going to whiz past this chat check-in, and we'll try to catch some of the comments at the end. Just keeping an eye on the clock.
You're good. Don't feel like you need to slow down. Keep going.
Great. Thank you. So we know what our colleges are telling us, what type of support they needed. So I'm really curious to hear from you in the chat as I describe the support that we're providing for the college grantees. I'm really curious to hear from you if this would work in your system, if this would help you, or what are we missing? What more could we be doing for colleges? So we offer monthly office hours, drop-in office hours. We've got great colleagues from all over the place who are helping us do this. OER librarian office hours, drop in once a month, talk to fellow librarians about ebook licensing, reserved copies, cataloging OER, etc. Open licensing office hours. Again, we've got an expert on Creative Commons licensing. Maybe some of you here know Jonathan Poritz, what wonderful colleague. He holds an office hour for us once a month. How do you license materials? Answers all of these questions, and he's also available to consult with colleges. Then open publishing office hours. We just concluded an agreement with friends at the Rebus Foundation to provide open publishing office hours to work with colleges, answer questions about managing publishing teams, publishing and marketing, OER, et cetera, et cetera. So drop in, chat, listen, lurk, learn as you wish. Also, we offer coaching for colleges. We have a network of experienced colleagues, faculty, staff, and administrators who are OER leaders at their own institutions, and they're available to be matched with the college. Let's say that a college doesn't have an infrastructure to develop OER. They're getting this grant money, and now they're happy for it, but they really don't know what to do about it. So we can match them with a coach to work with them one-on-one. We've developed and are delivering a whole host of professional development courses. These are facilitated online professional development courses, ranging from the basics of making the case for OER and ZTC, building and managing a team, all the way to universal design, open education, and AI, so on and so forth. Most of our courses are shared in Canvas Commons, so you can look in Canvas Commons for hashtag ZTC PD, as in zero textbook cost professional development, ZTC PD. Most of those courses are already in Canvas Commons, so please use them. They're all openly licensed, of course. And I want to share with you amazing, comprehensive work done by colleagues in the Academic Senate for the California Community Colleges. At the same time that I'm working with our state system office to support colleges, our Academic Senate has a really significant, well thought out OER initiative, primarily supporting faculty to develop and adopt materials. Our Academic Senate, you see the URL at the bottom of the screen there, our Academic Senate, amongst many other things, they have collected a list of OER by discipline, a list of OER by general education transfer requirements to our state university, so on and so forth. So it's just a real treasure chest of materials there. If you want to, if you work with faculty and they say, oh, I'm not going to use it until I know somebody else is using that material, this is a great place to go. OER by discipline. You can tell your colleagues, look, there are 5 colleges in California that are using this book, 10 colleges in California that are using this book, and so on and so forth. So this is a great resource for you, and shout out to our faculty Senate colleagues in California. Going to leave with you here a list of resources, and I'm looking in a confused manner at Kevin and my host here. I'm going to share the slides. I'm presuming that I'm uploading the slides somewhere. So these are live links, so everybody can grab these slides and get these live links. You'll see many of the resources that I mentioned, so you can go straight to those resources and learn a lot more. And finally, when we think about Supersize, of course, when you saw the title, this is what we all thought of, right? Supersize me. Even if you have, I've never seen the movie, but I know the image, I know the reference. So this is what, of course, Google gives us if we ask Supersize. But what I hope you think of when you think of ZTC degrees is not this stuffing our mouths full of OER or free material or stuffing the material into our curriculum. But I hope you think of what I found under Supersize at Power Thesaurus, really neat online thesaurus, synonyms for Supersize. I hope you think about an admirable size of program, an extra size, a fantastic size, a great or even a nifty size of your OER initiative being a supersized ZTC program. So not stuffing ourselves, but providing our students with nifty and admirable options for completing entire degree pathways without the barrier of costs and with a comprehensive pathway for them, giving them that green light that it's safe to proceed. They're not going to get surprised next semester by that $200 textbook. And with that, let's go back to the chat. And Kevin, or feel free to unmute. I'm not sure about the time, Kevin. I think we're a couple minutes over time, perhaps.
I think we can address maybe a burning question or two, but I want to remind everybody that we do have a drop-in that starts in just about 10 minutes time, where James and I will be able to help answer questions about strategy. There have been some good conversations within the chat, specifically about how do you push forward through a ZTC pathway when you may have a particular department or a particular faculty that provides a barrier to that pathway. And I don't know if you've faced it. I'm sure you've faced this within the college, and if you have any insights.
Sure. The smart aleck answer is quoting our friend Rajiv Jangiani, who said that sometimes progress happens one retirement at a time. But beyond that, really all the typical strategies. Informing the colleagues of materials that have been used at other institutions, finding out what materials are used at other institutions for that course. So let's say it's that accounting department. Well, what other colleges are using OER or have ZTC options for accounting? At your own institution, getting that data, tagging or flagging your ZTC or OER courses, working with your institutional researchers to document the impact, so that you can come in a data-informed way to the accounting department to say, look, every other department that's doing this, they're seeing increases in student success and retention. Look, their enrollments are going up. Look, the other institutions around us that have ZTC, their enrollments are up. So wield all that evidence.
It reminds me of a colleague in Connecticut. You know, when we talk about the 5 R's, we immediately think of David Wiley. But my colleague used to say there's 3 R's of administration, which is how does OER support recruitment, retention, and revenue?
I like that, Kevin. I like that. But we can't. It's risky to say that in mixed company. You know, we don't want to reveal to our colleagues that you and I as administrators, we sit behind closed doors, rubbing our hands and counting pennies and pushing papers, right? No, we're all in this to help our students.
James, I want to thank you for this insightful presentation, and again, thank you for being willing to join up and a drop in. But I see Rocco is on, which means that I must be quiet now.
Well, I was just gonna join in the conversation again, let everybody know that we have a drop in starting at 1 p.m. here Eastern time, but on the hour. just go navigate to the Whova platform, go to the agenda, you'll see it. That's the second session for day 2, and click in there, and we'll see everybody. We'll see everybody there at the next session. Thank you very much for joining the session. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, James.
Thanks, everybody.